What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today we have an event going on where apparently you can tag Sork and Dark Knight for like 1 silver or whatever the 1 fuel is. But yeah, I thought this was a surprising event, and it turns out I know a little bit about Dark Knight, so I figured I would probably update one of my older guides on Dark Knight. I'll show you my rotation, add-ons, and everything I use. So in case any of you guys are new players, returning players, or just want to try out Dark Knight in general, I've had an older video with my rotation and combo, and it's mostly the same, but I figured I'd just update it and tell you what it's all about, and figured maybe you'll find it interesting or try it out. So with that said, as far as I know, according to the patch notes, this event for Sork and Dark Knight, I guess, is the first one, starting today from March 26th to April 16, which is almost an entire month. That's pretty cool. I assume they're going to add in the other classes in the future. But with that said, we're in the battle arena. I'm going to show you my rotations. I'm going to basically talk about it. Now, let's get this out of the way. Succession versus Awakening. Currently, in its current state, Succession is just straight up better than Awakening. I don't think either of them are bad, but if you are just trying to get the maximum potential, Succession is just better than Awakening. I personally like Awakening just because it looks flashier, but if you're just trying to go for like more trash loot an hour, or you want to just be better, it is what it is. So until that happens, when Pearl Abyss changes and makes Awakening better, Succession is what we're going to be talking about today. So with that said, let's take a look at the skills. So what things should you lock? First one I have locked is the sudden attack, just because there's a lot of abilities you're going to be using your left button on, and you don't want to do the extra like sudden attack because it will mess with your combo and flow a little bit. Absolute hidden strike, you do use this one a little bit. Well, like you have Unveiled Dagger, which is this one, but then you don't really want the hidden strike after it because there's a few keys that you press in combo which like mess up the flow. Absolute darkness burst, there's once again more things you press that will mess up this combo. Evasion, like most classes, you probably lock this one as well. And Spirit Satiation, with infinite potions and the auto potting fairy these days, this one is basically irrelevant. Plus a lot of other buttons are on shift as well, and so you don't really want this one too much. Another lock I have is Split Second, and you just move it during that one. So when you queue into Split Second, you want to do something else when you're like, let's say you're holding block, and then you don't really want to do that one. You want to flow it with something else. So either way, those are my recommendations of locks. If you want to keep them on, you could, but I would just recommend not. Skill enhancements. I personally have these because they just flow a lot better. I personally don't really use Balance Strike a lot. It's just one of those filler skills. Well, kind of all 3 of them are filler skills, but this one is kind of like when everything else is on cooldown, you could press this one, and it's also on a 35-second cooldown, so it's not like you're using this regularly. Unveiled Fate is actually very nice because it gives attack speed for 10 seconds when using it, and all DR -20. So this one doesn't debuff the enemies. This one does, and also knockdown is, actually very nice. Wrath of Adir is actually these 2 are very competitive, and I would say there's no right or wrong answer with these 2. If you want to have extra regen, it's always nice to have, but Shadow Strike will help you pull enemies. Let's say an enemy is over there, you could use Shadow Strike to help pull and group things together. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with Wrath of Adir versus Shadow Strike over here, but I just personally like Wrath a little bit more for the recovery, especially when I'm doing bosses. That's mostly it, but either way, both of these are really solid. As for the other 2, I think most people just go Unveiled Fate and Balance Strike. That's about it. Add-ons. Now, there's a lot of things you can change. This is something I use in general. So your idea for everything is to basically, in your rotation that we'll talk about shortly, you want to have all your buffs going up at once. So I personally set this in a way that flows with my rotation. So you guys are going to see this and I'll talk about it. So basically you open with debuff for your enemies, and then you get more back attack damage. And then these are kind of your big attacks, like Wheel of Fortune, Lunacy of Vidir. So you want to make sure your crit rate is up to 100%, and then your damage for using those is maxed out. And then these are also your big damage abilities, so your faster attack and cast. And these flow early on into your rotation, so that's why we have that one. And then Twilight Dash is probably one of the flex spots that you can swap out for. So if you don't like Twilight Dash, also we tested this. So this one gives 10% move speed, and then this one we added another 10% move speed on here. They do stack, believe it or not. That was one of the things I was like, wait, this gives 10%, but people are adding another 10%. Do they stack? It does. And so keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you don't want Twilight Dash, another good option would probably be Slanted Balance, because a lot of the skills also work on a 7-second cooldown as well. Enforcement is also a solid one, because the idea of picking add-ons, besides it being in your rotation, is making sure it could line up with your abilities. So for example, Wheel of Fortune has a 6-second cooldown, but the abilities you put on here are also like above 6. So that means in theory, if you're good at your rotation, you can keep these up 100% at a time. So like, for example, this one, well, that one's a bad example, but everything else you can mostly line up with timers and have these at 100% or very close to it as possible. And that's also to go for basically every class, but this is Dark Knight. So yeah, most of these are, you know, just big damage abilities, and right here, and then Blooming is a flow that you use with, you know, like 2 of the 3 skills here. And then Twilight Dash is the one you could swap out. I personally use all damage reduction plus 20 because I do grind higher end spots, and, you know, it just feels a little bit safer. But if you don't need it, you could also swap it out with, you know, literally anything else. You could have more attack speed and attack cast speed, or just another special attack if you need it. But for me, it feels safer. And then Twilight Dash, once again, you could swap out for... I've seen people use Comma Slash. It has a higher cooldown, but it is what it is. It's not terrible. Slanted Balance is probably my second recommendation for this one, or Enforcement, because these have low cooldowns as well. So with that said, let's go into the rotation. So here's how we're going to look at it. We have this bar right here. I made this. This is what I use. It's the equivalent of, you know how people have the, what is it? The skill log on or something, and then the skill cooldown, which shows you what you can do in the cooldown. I have this so you guys can see it permanently, and then it goes from left to right. So you would open with this one. So the way you would look at it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then some of these are just fillers. But anyway, these are your core ones, and it goes top, bottom, from left to right. That's just how I like setting it up. So with that said, we talked about these in the skills over here, and you guys can see it. So before we do anything, let me show you what it is. So just to show you how it's lined up, and if you want to see the skill name of everything, this is just how I have mine set up. So you can take a screenshot, slow the video down or something, but that's just what I have lined up on here. All right, so how does the rotation work? I'm going to do this very slowly, and then after I'll show you what the combo looks like at, you know, more or less full speed. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to open with this one right here, Unveiled. Why? Because when you open, it gives a 10% attack speed for 10 seconds. So under this effect is the opener, and then followed by Slanted Balance, just because it flows with it. And then you flow with Pervasive Darkness. This also gives 10 AP when using the skill. So that's like, these are your pre-buffs. Like you hit the enemy, debuff and pre-buff with all of these that we talked about early on, right? You could also, I've seen some people do openers with Airstrike. I think that's fine as well. I think ultimately Dark Knight is, you know, hit your buttons on cooldown, and there's no set rotation. Just if you find something that works, that's good. And then followed by we have Spirit Legacy, which is one of our add-ons as well, which you can see as well, which is increased attack speed and debuffing the enemy. Followed by the Blooming Black Rose, which is also an add-on that we have, which buffing yourself with crit rate and crit damage. And then you let your big attacks go with Wheel of Fortune and Lunacy of Vidir. Then you go Enforcement. Enforcement is a very strong ability that even in PvP, you want to be careful for, because this one not only stiff and down attacks the enemy, because that one, I've seen this like 100 to 0 people. If you can CC them twice and then hit them with Enforcement, it just does a lot of damage. And then after that, you're kind of going into the fillers as we are on cooldown. So after this one, we have our Ravage Rake, which this one is a left and right hold button. So it does like 3 to 4 strikes, and then we'll show you how that works. And then another combo would be Twilight Dash into Comma Slash. This one flows a little bit differently, and you could use this in multiple different ways, and we'll talk about that as well. So there's multiple ways of using it, but you could flow it for a little bit smoother or get behind an enemy. Airstrike is over here. Where is it? Airstrike. Holy dude, I like lost it for a second. Hold on. Airstrike over here. Now this one you could use as an opener for PvE, that is, and then not only will it down attack some enemies, but this also works in PvP. But also, the reason why you're using it is also to get your back attack and also to debuff the enemy. Into Shadow Bullet. This one is... Shadow Bullet is not really that good. It just kind of a filler skill as well. And then after this, we go into some extra fillers when everything else is on cooldown. I'll show you some tricks as well once you get it, but let me show you how this is going to work. Ideally, you want to get behind an enemy, right? Opener with this one, so you would knock the enemy down or player, and then after that you saw how we hit these 3. Then we hit our 2 button. This one can only be hotkeyed, so you cannot do anything else. And then we're going to flow it with the blooming, so it's going to be that, and then you hold right click, so then those 2 flow basically naturally. And then after that, you want to hit your Wheel of Fortune and Lunacy. I've never really come to a conclusion which one in order is better. I think it's just whichever one is on cooldown at the time. But I like to do Wheel of Fortune first, and then that one. So either way, however you have your add-ons, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And then after that, in theory, your CC limit should be up. So then you would be on here. So it looks like this. Well, you do that faster, and this is on cooldown, but you do a flow with it. What this one looks like is a Ravage Rake. You left right button, and you hold it a few times. So it should do like 4 attacks, and you also knock down the enemy. And then after this is kind of where it's situational. So we have Twilight Dash into Comma Slash. The way you work is, like, if you're trying to go dash into a pact, which is, kind of questionable, don't do this in PvP. So let's say there's some enemies over here, and you want to move from point A to B. You would Twilight into Comma Slash. So these 2 abilities, so it would be like that. And then you would knock them down with these 2 flowing together. Another option is Airstrike into Shadow Bullet, or just Airstrike in general. So you would do this. Let's say you're trying to gap close and then move from point A to B. You'd be like that. And then this also knocks and floats them down as well. And then Shadow Bullet. This one will forever get people, because you have to directional and then right click. And then it doesn't even really target that well. So it's kind of like one of those things that doesn't even do much damage. Now, this is a trick that I learned recently. So let me show you how this works. So Obsidian Ashes, when you fire it off for the first time, it's going to be really slow, right? So let me just show you how it works. it looks like that, or no, wait, that's not that one. You saw how the animation wind up took a long time. Like you have to like raise your arm and then throw it. What we're going to show you is a few tricks that speed that up. So method number 1, when you dash and then, you know, you shifty, it should be, watch the animation for it. So like you dash and then that one fired off a little bit faster. When you watch my grind videos, I've done it in another way where we hotbar Phantasmal Snare. Now this is also a movement ability which you guys can use, but if you combo Pervasive Snare with it, it fires off basically instantly. So for example, let me show you. We're going to target this one and then we're going to hit the button. You saw how that was instant? That, like, you basically hit this one first and then Obsidian, and it's an instant fire basically. But aside from that, let me show you once again. If you were to hit this button, watch the animation, how slow it is. And then that's basically it. And then these two over here are basically your recovery abilities. So you would do like that, and then you could like knock down and then more recovery. So anyway, let me show you how this works a little bit faster. If you ideally, if you wanted to Z buff, that's fine as well. But watch the CCs and everything. And then that was it. So either way, I know this might be a lot and it's like, oh, there's so many buttons. The ones you really want to look for are basically the first, you know, first 10 over here, and then the 8 on the right side are kind of like situational fillers. So with that said, there's a few things I want to teach you guys before we get into it. So number 1, start by learning to hotbar the Phantasmal Snare. You could also use this if you're not doing Obsidian, but you can also use it as like a situational movement ability as well. So like you can move back and forth with that. That's the intended purpose. But if you're trying to animation cancel with that one, and this is on cooldown, you could just fire that off, like dash, and then toss that out. All right, so next thing we're going to talk about is Nocturne. Now, this is one of the unique skills about Dark Knight that I would say is something you're going to have to learn. It's not like a, oh, just press the button, right? Like all the other skills. So the way Nocturne works is when you press the button, you go invisible, and then you have about 1 second to pick a direction. So if you were to hit like W, you go behind the enemy, and then if you hit S, you backwards into a guard. So one would basically allow you to get a free back attack on the enemy, and the second one would allow you to play it more defensively. So basically, you do that, like you go invisible and then hit a directional. And so when you're behind the enemy, obviously you hit a button that would knock down your enemy. You do more back attack damage. Always nice to have. And then let me show you what it looks like again. So you do this one, and then you do that one. You go backwards into a guard. So defensive versus offensive. So that's how you use that properly. Another thing I could show you is different ways of using, what is it? Where's the skill? Comma slash. Now this one, we showed you how it flows into the rotation with Twilight Dash. Another thing you could do, let's say there's a bunch of enemies. Let's say there's like 5 of them on you, right? You can hold this, it gives you a guard, and then what you could also like dash or movement behind. So while you're charging the ability, you can actually just get behind an enemy with that one. There's a lot of flows that go together with a lot of these abilities. So it's one of those things you kind of have to just look out for. Now, also, one combo that I want to show you is with Lunacy, and then following it with a Nocturne. So if you look at the skill over here, you could follow that up with a, like, it flows with Lunacy, and it also flows with the Vidir Strike. What I do, let's say you're behind an enemy, or I guess it doesn't really matter where you're at. So you do this one. Let's say I press this one, and then you can also go invisible. Like you just hold the right click, and then it auto hits your Nocturne, and then you hit your directional. So yeah, those are some tricks that I give you. A lot of this one is the one that I find the most interesting. The one where you combo the Phantasmal Snare with the Obsidian, because it fires off instantly. So like you hit this one first, saw how fast that fired off, and then like if you do this one, go invisible and then go behind the enemy. So yeah, there's a lot of movement abilities. It's kind of positioning for this class, right? Think of it like an assassin type class where you have to kind of get around your enemy to be able to do that, and then you get a lot of CCs. So yeah, that's the rotation I use. There's no real right or wrong answer. It's kind of, as the other Dark Knights say, it's a freestyle class, and whatever buttons are in cooldown, you kind of just do that one. As long as your buffs are up at the same time, that's probably what I would do. So yeah, that's what I have. I think there's a few more things I want to talk about. So let's talk about Reforge Stones. This is what I use. I think this is a general thing that I would say if I were on any class, that would probably be the best, but it's situational. So ideally you want AP, crit rate, crit damage, Black Spirit recovery, and extra back attack damage. This is my go-to PvE, and it's just trying to get the max damage possible. Always nice. BSR allows you to 100 more, like, faster. I think it's good. So for all three of them, I have this one. If I'm in spots where I'm doing down attacks, like Star's End, for example, I would swap out back attack for down attack. And if I was PvPing or doing something where I need more defenses, I swap out, what is it? The Black Spirit recovery, or no, not Black Spirit recovery, but the extra crit rate for all damage reduction and accuracy if I'm needing it in PvP. So here's one thing with Dark Knight. Your goal is to get 100% crit rate, and the way you could do that, or you can look at it, is like it used to be down there, but either way, there's a way to see your full crit stats, I believe. Okay, so you see how your base crit rate, I believe, is not 24%, but because I have a few extra, like the add-ons and everything going on, or Reforge, this should give me an extra like 15%. So the lowest abilities you want to talk about, or I want to talk about, are here. So let's see. Airstrike, this is a 60%. And most of them, I would say, are 100%, but there are very few abilities that, you know, require the extra crit rate. Awakening Dark Knight, most of your abilities are at 100. You play it a little bit differently. But Succession, this one is a crit rate of 40, and then this one is a crit rate of 60. And I think everything else that matters is like 100. So people have been asking, is it better to have 2 or 3 crit rate, like crit hit rate Reforge? I personally do 3 to guarantee the 100%. But if you only had 2, you would be at like 90, high 90s. So like, does it really matter? No, but if you want to have like 100% on exactly one ability, then that's nice to have. So either way, if you feel like you need more defensives, 2 crit rate, 1 DR, or literally anything else. But I just like to have 3 of them. So there's that. I think, you know, if you looked at my video for crystals, it's the same, so I'll leave a link in the description. That's a long video, so you can watch that at your own time if you want to see all the crystals that I use, PvP, PvE, life skilling and everything. I think that's really it for a Dark Knight in particular, if I remember correctly. All the artifacts and Lightstone combos are basically the same as every other class you would use, the same setups. Reforge, I would just say this one in general, if you're looking for what to get, AP, double crit, crit rate, and crit damage, Black Spirit recovery, and back attack are the best ones for basically every class, in my opinion. And let me see. I think we talked about everything. I don't think there's anything else for Dark Knight. But yeah, in case you're wondering, we went over all the skills, the rotation, some extra animation cancels, some extra abilities that I would recommend, and I think that's about it. So one thing I would recommend you guys learn early on if you're playing Dark Knight, just kind of as a recap. One, learn your comma slash. There's definitely different times to use like the charged versus the flow. So like if you're behind an enemy, you can just hold that and knock them down. If you're in front of the enemy, you could hold this, and keep in mind, like when you're holding it, you could also, I hate how he turned that way, but you could move while you're doing that and also knock him down. Animation cancels for Obsidian, which is this one right here. Let me just show you. Watch the animation. Look how slow it is. You saw the wind up. And then also, while we're waiting for that on cooldown, you could learn your Nocturne directionals and then go. Usually, I would say going behind the enemy is more effective than protective, but it's situational. And if you're a PvE and PvP, but once again, learn the phantasmal movement with Obsidian cancel, because you saw the animation, how it's so slow. That one is basically instant. But yeah, I think that's about it. That's Succession Dark Knight in a nutshell. If you want to try something different in terms of rotation, I'm pretty sure that's fine. If you found something that works for you, it's mostly a freestyle. What your ideal goal is, you see how it went from left to right. You could also opener with airstrike as well to debuff, but what I wanted was basically to buff myself with attack speed, and then like all the flows that give me my crit rate, crit damage, back attacks, crit damage, and then you fire off the big abilities over here, and then once everything is on cooldown, you just kind of hold this, and then the damage goes out. So TLDR, the left 10 abilities over here are the ones you want to work on. 8 over here are more situational, but they all flow together in a way. So that's about it. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Would love to see you guys come back. I have a bunch of things to talk about in the near future, new events and everything. But for everyone else who is looking to try out Dark Knight, because the event for DK and Sork is basically the entire month and part of next month, yeah, I think Dark Knight is a fun class overall. Just know it is like an assassin glass cannon kind of class. If you're trying to play something tanky, this is not it. You do a lot of damage, but you also get like one-shotted. So that is what it is. That's just the class play style. I like it. And yeah, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. We'll point you in the right direction. You can join the Discord if you need help with anything as well. Gear help, rotation help, or anything. But that's about it. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Okay, so one more thing that I wanted to show you guys before we wrap up is today there's a new outfit in the game, and Prolibus has given a lot of the partners the ability to showcase it. So we got this, and it's the new Black Horizon outfit for basically every class. I wanted to show you what it looks like, how it dies, and just in case you were thinking about getting it, what it looks like. So we have this one. It's another Korean or like K-pop kind of looking outfit. So if you either like it or you don't, this is what it looks like by default. And yeah, like if you've gotten the other ones, it's very similar. So this is what it looks like without the hat, or like no hide the headgear without the hat, hidden with the hat. I think it's fine. Ultimately, how does it die? That's the important question. All right, so if I had to guess, probably everything, you could everything you could think of dying, it probably is that one. So they've usually done a pretty good job in terms of, the amount of changes you can make. So I think this outfit looks like it's either fabric, more like an authentic fabric, so Olvian, or Hydelian, and maybe Keplin dye. So either way, I like the Olvian one the most. So the shirt under, change this color by default. And let me see, can I change this stance? Okay. Change that color. What is this one? What are we looking at? You could do that. Not really sure what that one is. Maybe it's covering. Maybe hold on. Oh, it's the little black spirit thing over there on the bottom. Okay. The little like emblem or logo over here, you can change that one. Skirt. Color change. Ooh, that one's kind of bright, actually. Maybe the Hydaelyn one ain't it. That one's not it either. Yeah, probably Olvian looks the most natural, in my opinion. Yeah, it just looks odd. Or basic is more like natural looking colors. Change the belt color. Whatever, that's cool. The little almost Gucci looking metal chain belt buckle. What is this? Hold on. Oh, the ring over here. Oh, the ring. You could change that color over here. I think that's a nice attention to detail, to be honest. Your nails, you could change the color of. A lot of the outfits recently with the like the K-pop kind of looking ones, you could change the nail color. I think that's a nice attention to detail. Jacket color. And like the inner hood part, I think that's really nice, actually. You could change that one in particular. And this one is like the metal zipper. That one, if I were to guess, would probably look better in like a more shiny metal look. I think that looks cool, actually, to be honest. So yeah, everything else, the shoes. If I had to guess, shoe part here, shoe color, and then the buckle. Yep, shoe color, you could change that one. Oh, I guess, yeah, the socks. Natural looking. And then the buckle over here. So, it's to... Can't change the bottom part and here, the tips, but you can change the shoe color itself. Hat. Only like 2 pieces, the hat color, and I assume this is it. Yep, the Black Desert logo in the center. And that's about it. So everything you can dye, that's what it looks like by default. I don't think it's bad. It's just, it kind of looks like every other outfit that they've introduced lately. So either way, it's not a bad one. It's just, if you have another one that kind of looks the same, that's about it. Anyway, see you guys later. Peace.